My name is Marko Klemetti. Some of you might already know you, at least I know some of the people in the audience today. I'm from Eficode. Eficode is an IT company, which is where we are currently based in, mostly in Kamppi, like that's our headquarters, just a few blocks away. And then we have offices in Tampere, and then 2 in Sweden, 1 in Denmark, 1 in Amsterdam, and then 1 in Germany. We're currently 250 people. And what we do is we mainly are based on terms DevOps, and then, of course, development, which is, we call it builders because we also see that development contains everything that has to do with design as well. I'm going to be walking at a good pace today, not only because I'm the last one, but also because there's heaps to show. And there are a few things I will first explain to you, and then I will show you in real life. So if you see me skipping between like browsers and code and the presentation, don't worry about it. It's on purpose. So if you're going to pick something from my speak today, that would be design system is the basis for the organizational culture and automation. That's pretty much it. So everything I'm going to be explaining today has something to do with that idea. How do you bring everything into being part of the design system? I presume everybody knows what the design system is. If you don't, could you raise your hand? Exactly. Cool. So then let's move on. Everything I'm going to show you today can be found from GitHub, github.com/eficode/design system example. You can just, like, it has really everything. It has also the virtualization environment, all the containers, the tests, how to run, like everything that has to do with something I'm showing today is there. Let's start with one of the main things of today. As already mentioned, with everything we've been talking today, design is one of the key points of how to actually get your product planned, done. And then what's the gap between that and having it delivered? So what we believe in is what we call towards zero-day delivery. And the idea behind that is if you have an idea or you see your metrics of like your customer retention or you're doing some kind of a new version of your site or application or whatever, when you get the idea or you see that the market is changing, that's the starting point. But how much it actually takes until you release it or get it out is all spent time on, like, or if you think it as lean way, it would be waste. So what are the ways that you can actually shorten the time from getting the idea, finding something on the market, seeing a metric of something that has to change to the point where you can actually release it? And since I've been mostly working my whole career in the coding and releasing into production environments, which is the DevOps side, the automation side, I've been always bothered with the fact that the people who work there in the IT part, they're usually people who are waiting for the design to appear from somewhere. Or they're the coders who are waiting for the design to appear from somewhere. And kind of seeing that in the modern world, as spoken today already, the design, everything that has to do with it, even if it was like paper prototypes, I'm moving it towards electronic formats like we've been talking of InVision I saw here a few times, and I'm going to show my presentation using Sketch. Is how you move it towards the electronic vector formats, and then how you bring everything from the automation and the release all the way towards that. That's the key. So the part of coding, the actual writing of functional code, is becoming more and more insignificant. It was also part of the Zalando's presentation and part of the presentation just before, that writing the actual code is getting so much smaller. You already have the components, you have the style sheets, you have the HTML, CSS. You also have templates for the tests. You already have the pipeline for the delivery and automation, how to get your product into production environment. And writing the code is just trying to pick the exact logic, or then actually picking another product that has already been done in the open source, or then within the organization. And that's something I'm going to show. The other part I want to say, because I said mostly design, what is happening all the time is, of course, cloud environments become more popular. Also, Finnair is using heaps of cloud currently. And it's become mainstream. But what it's also brought is that it's becoming a self-service environment, which means that the development teams, including the design people, they don't have to contact IT to say that here's our package, we'd like it delivered. Cloud and everything that has to do with cloud has enabled it being self-service, which means that many of the modern teams actually deliver the product themselves because they have the access to that part of the production environments or cloud that has been, or that's part of their product. Cool. So, how I see that modern software development should go. This is example, naturally, some of you might know that it's from the React example app creation. So if you pick Facebook React application, the first line you would write is like so. So the idea is that when I start a new project, let's say Finnair or Eficode or whichever, it should start from, not by starting your project from an empty space or empty folder or whichever. What you do is you create a command which brings you the template of that particular product. And with the template, you naturally have, say, your style files or whichever in a version format. And what this actually means, since I just returned from Australia yesterday, they've been taking it actually really far, and it's governmental example. I like to show it because the Australian government has created a design system, which has, of course, the components, the HTML, everything. They've decided also to expand it to React. And the point is that they have, as part of the design system, what they've also done is it's versioned. So you can go to GitHub. If you find a problem in their design system, you would just post a pull request, and then it would be merged by the team behind the design system. So that as an example, so when you start a new project, you'd pick your style guides or whatever as part of being that project. But also, in addition to that, you would also pick everything that's included as part of it, which could be, say, the backend example. It could be the front end having the React components in place. It could be the provisioning. It could be the acceptance tests or whatever. Here's an example of a sketch file. It's using currently a style package called UIKit. Some of you might have been also working with it. Don't worry about too much on the components here, but you'll see that this is like a basic style guide for UIKit components. So what the designer would do is that they would create a page. I'm just going to show you a simple login page here, which has the title, then two text boxes, a select box and login. And what happens when you write in the version number and pick the package, you would also have the components ready-made for you, which means that building this page in code would be just writing text field, checkbox, and button. It would also have, for example, the provisioning on your own computer, which means that you run one command, and what it does, it starts the project for you. And since you've now written the text fields, checkbox, and button, you can go to your browser and see that, okay, here it is. My local host shows me this page, which looks exactly the same as in the design. And the reason for that is simple, this one line of code, basically. And the good part, of course, with that is when you're maintaining a design system, not only containing the components here, but also the infrastructure, you could, for example, change the button styles and they would be reloaded immediately in browser. Probably you all are more or less familiar with this stuff. But as said, it could be taken so much further. So, just quickly, why design systems are popular today? As said, they are the uniform voice, identity, and styles of the organization. Usually the style books is something that is divided within the organization, the same as you are doing. And Elisa style book, for example, is openly available to everybody. From stylebook elisa.fi as an example. So you don't just want to have the style book working in your organization, you also want to share it to everybody. Kickstarting new innovations, you start a new project, you have a team working on a product and someone starts similar product, they are sharing the information in between. Like 99% of the initial product phase is exactly the same for the two projects, which means that through the design system you can share it all to the other team. Also, when you make an update in team 2, let's say you create a new kind of a date picker or something, a component that's pretty difficult to do, but is inevitable as part of the product. When you've finished it, you just promote it back to the design system the same way as what's happening currently in the Australian design system. You post a pull request with the new component. Someone who's the owner of the design system reviews it and merges it. And by changing the version number, you get the new component. And what the design systems usually lack, and why I'm also speaking here today, is that developing and implementing it on organization level is usually pretty difficult. So let's say you have created your design system, which includes the HTML and CSS, and then you decide that let's expand this to React, which is currently the most popular, like JavaScript-based user interface design system, framework. And then you'd like to expand it to iOS or Android, or you want to have AngularJS as part of it. How do you get the team that starts the project in, say, AngularJS to actually contribute and build on the existing design system so that if you then later decide to continue on the Angular side, you'd already have it as part of the design system and not just something that the team extended to themselves and didn't share to the whole organization. Then the tested code components, to my surprise, which I'm very happy of, to be honest, the Australian design system has already the components tested, but it's actually not too difficult. So also in the example I have in GitHub, when you run Npm test, what it does, it actually runs tests on the components. And it's something that guides also the component development. So if we pick the text field here, and we just add a new span, just an example, we've made a change like unknowingly to our original design system coming from the version number. We see that, okay, there is one failure in our tests. And the reason is that we went and changed our original design system. So our options, we have two options. Either we, of course, make a pull request to the original design system, or then we try to find some way around of that component. So testing, as said, is like very essential part of the whole equation. And then, of course, the same goes to the backend. So what we could have, for example, is users test. Sorry, a bit more code, but it's really easy to read. Should log in with correct email and password, something that most of the services use. What we do, we post to the server, log in, sending an email and password, and making sure that the response is accepted and it includes the user information. So the good parts are you already had your login system as part of the template you started with, and also you have the examples how to write easy test cases for the functionalities that you start creating. And exactly the similar way, if you did a change, one of the tests would fail. And then even more interestingly, as you already have your sketch or any other design system tool in use, you have the components there. I already mentioned like date picker as one of the more difficult components. They're also usually really difficult to acceptance test. So what you would add into your acceptance tests, of course, is a way to write your test cases against the designed application. So here's just example of 6 test cases with various usernames and passwords which are wrong. And then we're verifying that login fails with these particular information. And what our acceptance test templates would do naturally is it would start a browser for us and run the test cases on that particular browser. Or if you used a mobile application, you'd see them run on the mobile application, like so. And they also came as part of the original version number. Then the delivery pipeline. So as said, it's actually not a big addition after this. I'm using just simply Jenkins as one of the examples here, but you could use whatever suits the best. You'd have the pipeline, which means that you'd have the building of the components, the tests I just showed you, the acceptance testing, and in addition, you do probably some kind of security auditing to your product and linting, making sure that the code quality is like it's similar code in all of the components you're building. And then, of course, the deploy, which then deploys the new version. While I'm talking, what I'm doing here, I'm gonna try to deploy us the one with danger. Like so. And our design system is currently working in design system.hopefully.works. And once the pipeline is finished, it should hopefully change the color to red. And it will start in a minute, so we can continue soon. But as kind of the key point behind everything I've showed to you is that once you have this kind of a way of working with the designers, developers, DevOps, the whole production environment, what's happening here is that you don't only have that one version number with the one package, but you're also adding in a way of enhancing better practices and enhancing automation, which means that if one of the teams comes up with a solution for, say, security auditing, you want to know that the packages are secure. Through that design system or the package behind it, you would also share that practice to all of the projects. Let's see how we're doing here. And as said, like, you would need the only things you'd actually need is the build and deploy phases. You build your application, you deploy it to production environment, and that's it. But how are you sure that it actually works, and how do you make sure that it keeps its quality in the future? You need something else as well. And as said, as part of the whole thing, by building an environment around automation supported by the organization would of course be the way of doing it. So here's our robot tests, and then last part would be deployment. We're having a good silent moment. We're waiting what happens. So let's see. The tests did pass. We have a tool called Kubernetes up and running here in the background. Actually, it's running in Cube that hopefully that works. And once the deployment starts, what it does, it will just update the packages here. First, it builds, of course, the production images. Perfect. So as said, that being the last slide, this as a quick glance into how the whole design system styles can be taken so much further in organizations to also enforce better communication within different units or within the organization. Cool. It's deployed. So once I reload, it should have turned red, which it does, and that concludes my presentation.
Thank you so much for the super insightful talk, Marko. Are there any questions regarding the design system from any of you? I have a question for you. Is this like a project? Are you scared? No, don't worry.
No, just kidding.
Just making a grimace. Okay, is this a project-based system, or are you using that like company-wide? Because you know there might be different needs, right, and different like ways of how you do something. So, are you know, making something specifically tailored, or do you also have a company-wide thing, or how does it work?
To be honest, in organizations, like I said, we are a consultation company ourselves, and we are working with our customers to make their design systems better. Usually this starts from a team level. Someone like Propeller Head comes up with the idea of starting to expand, like in companies that already have design system in place, the HTML, the CSS. They would start expanding it to, say, React components. And then in Slack or some other communication way, like on a lunch, they would tell that I've created actually the React components. And then someone else says that, wow, actually we could use that as well. And it starts expanding organically. And then someone picks it and decides that, wow, this is something that we could actually do. Or then in organizations like Finnair or Telia or Elisa, just to name a few, what they would do is that they would build a design system team that usually consists of people in the development teams that have they are the brains and acceptance tool behind in what are we going to include in our design system. And once it's expanding, what are we accepting into it.